My mom, great swing voter, usually votes Democrat. I call her up, Mom, you with Kerry? Well, I suppose I'll hold my nose and vote for him, but he comes off like a mortician. And worse than that, he's always talking down to me, multinationalism and, you know, remember Bush on the war? We need to go to Iraq and we need to stand our ground. What did Kerry say about the war? Well, we need a multinational unilateral effort and engage the French and the whoever and it's out your head. It's like Bush gave me a straight answer. I don't know if I agree with it, but that's the straight answer. That's who I'm getting. That's who I'm voting for. See what I mean? So it was a little bit, it's not always about the issues. We always want to think it's about the issues. It's not about the issues, folks. The same country elected Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, Bush the senior, total idiot, then Clinton, and Bush. I mean, it makes no sense. If we're all pro-life, we're all pro-gun, or we're all pro this, or pro that, well then we'd all vote for one candidate down the line on these issues. That's not how it works. We vote for who most appeals to us, who seems most like me, right? And who seems like they're listening and would be a good leader. That's it. It's that simple. From president to dog catcher, it's that simple. And so that's all we're trying to do is have a conversation with voters and let them know that we're one of them and we feel their pain, to use a Bill Clinton line, et cetera, et cetera. That's the game. If I wanted to run during NFL pregame and the Packers are on the Sunday night game, or if I want to run in the Packers Sunday night game, well then the price goes up quite a bit, but you know, never more than $25, $30 for 30 seconds. Now do I have to tell you all that that's a decent value? No. Makes sense, obviously, right? That's the way it works. Radio, 30 seconds on the phone, 30 seconds, I'm driving, I can't write anything down, can't write down a website, I'm watching something else, okay? So I'm paying attention outside, I'm driving, if there's music on, maybe I bop my head and sing along, but once it gets to the white noise, I'm not really listening. Unless it's the weather or sports or my kids' school's getting delayed or whatever than that, I'm not listening to that white static chatter on the radio. I'm driving my car and probably talking on the phone. See what I mean? TV's different. TV washes over you. I'm eating my chips and my dip. I'm having a beer. The kids are running around. I'm watching the game. Oh, there's that Rich Langan guy again. I only heard a little bit of it, but he seems like a good guy. And see, it's visual and audio, auditory, however I should have said that. But you know, you hear it, you see it, and so that creates a feeling inside. Because remember, we're trying to create a feeling where who's most like me and who listens to what I have to say. That's who wins elections, okay? Let's say on all campaigns it's TV, broadcast, it's TV, cable, it's radio, it's direct mail, and it's the internet, and then there's retail stuff, meaning hand-to-hand, person-to-person. There's doors, there's phones, and there's events / house parties. Okay? All right. So these are the different mechanisms or delivery channels, if you will, to have a conversation with the electorate. TV broadcast, you see it in your presidential, you see it in Russ Feingold, you see it in Herb Kohl. They got millions and millions of dollars. They say, let's just go on ABC and talk to everybody, okay? Back to our 90,000 to only 10,000 really matter. When you buy broadcast, you're talking to all 90,000, okay? And it's really, really expensive to talk to all 90,000 people, all right? Campaigns of your size or your structure, any campaign essentially under $200,000, $250,000 should never spend any money on broadcast television. Now that said, you live in a market that's Green Bay. Do you have something that happens in the fall that's what you would call a local culture or phenomenon? Well, yeah, it's called the Packers. So maybe you figure out, how do you buy a little TV around the Packers? You call up the local NBC station. I want to buy an ad before the Packers game. Well, it's 40 grand, so we have to scratch that off the list. What's next on the list, though? Cable TV, okay? In 1980, 90%, 95% of all television viewing was broadcast. This ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, that's it, okay? Nowadays, about 55% of all television viewing is on cable, and 45% is on broadcast. Those big three channels we talked about, plus Fox Now, UPN, WB, those are all still broadcast. But cable is really where it's at in the television market these days. The good thing about cable in a city like, let's say you're running in Green Bay, but you're only running on the west side or the south side or whatever it is, you can go to the cable company now and what they call segment the population, and you can usually go and draw a line around a certain geographic area. If you're lucky, it matches up close. It doesn't always match up perfectly, but it gives you a lot better bang for your buck to have a conversation. And cable is very, very affordable. In races that are $50,000 to $200,000, I typically tell my clients if we're going to spend 70% of our money on having that conversation, communication, 70% of the dollars going into voter contact, we'll spend at least 50 to 60% of the money on cable, on targeted, real direct cable. How do you do that? Well, here's how you do it. Down here, we got our 10,000 people we know we need to win, okay? Rich Langan needs white guys who might be like him, who are either military background, public service, cops, firemen, people like Rich. Because who do we vote for in America? People like ourselves, right? That's the deal. So in Rich's case, his 10,000 targets, we know who those 10,000 targets are to begin with. What we're trying to figure out is who of those 10,000, which 5,100 or which 5,001 can Rich get in his campaign to vote for him to ensure that he wins his election, okay? Well, in his case, it might be all sort of middle-age-ish white guys who are pseudo-Republican but not quite. You know, in your case, ma'am, it might be 50-ish women who are Republican, but swing vote a little bit. But if you talk to them about education and health care and their property values and insurance, sometimes you can pull them off their husband, who you won't pull off, trust me. The husband's going to vote Republican, forget about it, right? But in a household, if you're going to get the swing, it's usually the woman. So in our case, in these Democratic campaigns, we want to get that moderate male who socially thinks he's a Republican, but because of his pocketbook, he ought to vote Democrat. And in your case, we'd get, you know, the woman who's socially a little bit more of a Republican, but because of her pocketbook, you can probably peel her off and get her to vote Democrat. Well, how do you do that? Well, amongst the conversation, amongst your target group of that 10,000 folks, you figure out what's the demographic and geographic profile of your voter. So your voter is, they live in Door County and it's women over 50. So okay, you turn around and you go, or I go, in my case, I'd go to the cable company, I'd get all their statistics on who watches cable in their area, I'd feed it into the computer, come out the backside. Lifetime is your #1 channel, which it probably would be. And yours would probably be TNT or TBS or something close to that. Fox, FX maybe, something like that where you're catching mid-range men. People always say to me, wasn't it on CNN and Fox? Well, no. If you're watching CNN, you're already probably going to vote for the Democrat. And if you're watching Fox, you're probably already going to vote for the Republican. That 20 and 30 we talked about that's already made up their mind, that's who watches the news, folks. The 10,000 people who are trying to figure out how to vote, they don't care. They might be watching the news, but they're watching ABC Family with their kid. And they're watching Lifetime because they want to get a movie and get away from their life for 2 hours. Or they're watching Home and Garden TV to figure out how to flip their house. Or whatever, right? They're not seeking out politics. And so when we do programming that says, well, you must seek out politics, therefore, we'll buy these channels. No, that's the 67% that more or less already have their mind up. They're people like me. They're people like you all in this room, okay? What we're looking for is that 10,000 section of the electorate, in our case, that's more worried about the pot roast tonight and Junior's braces and Sally's cheerleading camp and Rebecca's soccer game and all that kind of stuff than they are, and paying the bills and the mortgage and gas prices. That's way more important than any of you politicians. And I'm sure you've already figured that out, and I know you have if you've run. It's just the way it is. They care more about themselves than what a politician has to say, and that's natural. And that's just human nature. So as we talk to voters, it's always about, well, what do you think? Well, how can I help you? Well, how can I engage you in the process, okay? And the funny thing about voters, you watch focus group after focus group, they don't necessarily care that their politicians don't get anything done. They care when their politicians don't listen to them. They want to know that they've been listened to. So it's okay if Rich Langan doesn't believe 6 out of my 10 things, I'm really Republican, and he's only 4 out of 10, and the Republican guy is 6 out of 10. But Rich Langan comes to my door, and he talks to me, and he listens to me, and he's a sweet guy, and he's going to go out there and do the right thing, so I'm going to vote for Rich Langan. Or I was watching TNT with the boys, and Darn Rich Lang, and he was on there again talking about how we need to do this, this, and this, and please join me and help me in my cause. And you know, I think I'm going to vote with that guy. He's an okay guy. Okay, so that's cable, and that gives you a taste of what I'm talking about. Anybody in here a radio salesman? Good. I hate radio. It sucks. It costs more than cable, and I never buy it. I've been visited by more radio vendors in Texas, and you can shake a stick at, and they sit down, and they tell me it's the best medium to reach a voter. No. It's ridiculous, okay? Your typical cable spot costs $1 to $4.